Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom. Lord willing Lord willing you all can hear me. For shalom. I want to begin the lesson off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakahakwadash. Double blessing honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth through the spirit of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. I want to begin the lesson off with this verse. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 12 and verse 10. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. So this lesson that I'm going to do today is going to be talking about reproductive rights and the history of birth control and eugenics. So with the election happening and whatnot a couple weeks ago now, the selection, you have a lot of women that are very moved by Donald Trump winning or being selected. You have all of these women who are fighting for reproductive rights and whatnot, and it makes you want to look back and look at the history of things, because a lot of these women, they don't know the history of reproductive rights. They don't do their research. So that's basically what I'm gonna be doing today. I'm gonna be talking about it and diving deep into the history of it. I already made this lesson last night. In the middle of me making the lesson, though, the lesson did not save on my phone. My assumption would be because of how long the lesson was. I was about 50 minutes in, and the lesson was going to be well over an hour long. So I just decided to live stream it this time, and Lord willing, it'll upload and be fine. So with that being said, I just first want to talk about where all of this where all of this information is coming from. Number one, you have a lot of people, like I said, who are upset at Donald Trump because he's planning to ban abortion, which is indeed not true. Donald Trump never said that he was going to ban abortion. So I'm going to go ahead and read a couple articles and information regarding that on what he actually said, because there's a lot of misinformation being spread about that, saying, oh, women don't have rights and all of this other things, and he's going to take our rights away and we won't have a choice and all of this stuff. So let's go ahead and read that. This article is from CNN, and the title reads, Trump says he would veto a federal abortion ban if elected. And this was at the beginning of October. And it reads, former President Donald Trump said Tuesday he would veto a federal abortion ban if he is elected again, which he was elected. It says, in quotes, everyone knows I would not support a federal abortion ban under any circumstances, and would, in fact, veto it, because it is up to the states to decide based on the will of their voters, in parentheses, the will of the people. Trump wrote in all caps post on his Truth social platform during the CBS vice presidential debate between his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. And he says, like Ronald Reagan before me, I fully support the three exceptions for grape, incest, and the life of the mother. Trump continued. And it says the GOP nominee has repeatedly said he would not sign a federal abortion ban, but during last month's ABC debate with Vice President Kamala Harris, he would not commit to vetoing such a ban and instead argue he wouldn't have to. When he was asked during that debate about Vance telling NBC News that the former president would veto such legislation, Trump said he hadn't spoken to Vance about it, saying, I don't think he was speaking for me. Abortion has been a key contrast in the 2024 race, which is what I was saying, with Harris enjoying a clear advantage on the issue. That's partially fueled her lead among female voters nationally and in swing states. Democrats have made abortion rights a prominent part of their messaging this year, pointing to state-level restrictions made possible by Trump-appointed Supreme Court justices voting with the majority to overturn Roe v. Wade in 2022. So let me get that real quick, because I remember this. Roe v. Wade was a landmark decision of the U.S. Supreme Court in which the court ruled that the Constitution of the United States protected the right to have an abortion. The decision struck down many abortion laws, and it sparked an ongoing abortion debate in the United States about whether or to what extent abortion should be legal, who should decide the legality of abortion, and what the role of moral and religious views in the political sphere should be. So, and then I'm gonna read this. So from that article, we just learned that he said in his own words that he look how look at this Edomite. But no, we just learned from this in his own words that he said uh he would not support a federal ban on abortion, meaning he would not completely outlaw abortion throughout the nation. So I don't know where these people are getting that information where he said he would ban it. But this is also, and it took my thing down. Okay, this is also information from Wikipedia from the Project 2025 page, and you can also go on their page if you would like and read through their handbook. But this is about women's reproductive health. It says Project 2025's proponents maintain that life begins at conception. The mandate says the Department of Health and Human Services should return to being known as the Department of Life, as Trump HHS Secretary Alex Azar nicknamed it in January 2020, voicing his pride in being part of the most pro-life administration in this country's history. Project 2025 says it would reposition department policies by explicitly rejecting the notion that abortion is healthcare and by restoring its mission statement under the Trump HHS strategic plan and elsewhere to include furthering the health and well-being of all Americans from conception to natural death. So that's what a lot of women are upset about. They talk about how abortion is health care, and the fact that I remember this is like whenever this is going on at the end of Trump's term or whatnot, how they were talking about banning, or this might not even been during Trump. This might have been during 2022 or something like that. How they were talking about taking away contraceptives like Plan B and all that stuff, and people were freaking out. And that's the problem in today's society. Like I said, man, it's hoflation. You have a lot of women who deep down they don't want this stuff to go away because they want to enjoy living life. They want to enjoy that whole life that they're living right now. They don't want to take the responsibility of potentially having a kid. That's why a lot of them take these types of methods, these birth control methods and whatnot. I'm gonna get into that later though. But as it reads in the scriptures, man, she who liveth in pleasure is dead while she lives. So, where was I at? Salaki. Project 2025 says it will reposition department policies. Okay, read that. Notion that abortion is healthcare. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. This is what I really want. This is the juicy stuff right here, this paragraph. In 2022, the Supreme Court ruled in Dobbs v. Jackson, Women's Health Organization, that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. So what does that word confer mean? It means duty. Grant, a title, degree, benefit, or right. So they do not grant a right to abortion, thereby leaving it to the states to create their own legislation on the matter. What does legislation mean? Lawmaking. The legislator makes the laws. See? Lawmaking, law. So what that's saying is just reiterating what Trump already said. The Constitution doesn't grant the right to abortion. So with that, you're leaving it up to the states to decide their laws on abortion, whether they want to ban it or whether they want to make it legal. And that goes into reproductive rights as well, because it's a part of abortion and birth control, which I'm going to get that to a little bit later. It says, but Project 2025 encourages the next president, which is planning to be Trump if he makes it, to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support. So it says to enact the most robust protections for the unborn that Congress will support. So that doesn't mean that he's going to force Congress to abide by a law that he wants to make that's saying we're not going to make abortion legal, birth control or reproductive rights legal. He's just saying that they're just saying that they're strongly encouraging the next president to put in place protections that Congress will support. So that Congress part, conference legislator, a legislative body, especially that of the U.S. Congress, which meets at the Capitol, and is composed of the Senate and House of Representatives. So that's just going back into the states having the power to whether they want to ban abortion or whether they want to keep it legal. So the people elect the U.S. representatives, the Senate, or whatnot, whoever they want from their state to represent them, their rights, which is what Donald Trump was saying. But see, you have people who don't do research. They don't look into things. And they just run with the first thing they hear. So the project also says the Dobbs decision is just the beginning. Conservatives should push as hard as possible to protect the unborn in every jurisdiction in America. Now, let's just stop right there, because we haven't dug into the history of birth control and reproductive rights yet. But I'm just going to tell you this right now. The reason why these conservatives are pushing so hard and are being so pro-life is because there was a study that was done in 2016, and I can only assume that actually, yeah, let me just go with that. There was a study that was done in 2016 that showed that more Edomites had been killed than were born. So they were having problems with producing. You have an increase in the amount of women and men that are really women that are taking birth control, that are stopping themselves from reproducing, especially in my age group. You have an increase of it. So that's why they're trying to stop this increase. They want they want their population to go back up. So that's the reason why these people are pushing so hard to get to change the rules on it. Now, now that I've gotten that out the way, let's go to the person who started it all, Talakia. This is Margaret Sanger. She was an American birth control activist, sex educator, writer, and nurse. She popularized the term birth control, opened the first birth control clinic in the United States, and established organizations that evolved into the Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Sanger used her writings and speeches primarily to promote her way of thinking. She was prosecuted for her book, Family Limitation, under the Comstock Act in 1914. She feared the consequences of her writings, so she fled to Britain until public opinion had quieted. Sanger's efforts contributed to several judicial cases that helped legalize contraception in the United States. Due to her connection with Planned Parenthood, Sanger is frequently criticized by opponents of abortion. Sanger drew a sharp distinction between birth control and abortion, which both fall under reproductive rights. I'm gonna go into it when I get down there. And was opposed to abortions throughout the bulk of her professional career, declining to participate in them as a nurse. Sanger remains a prominent figure in the American reproductive rights and feminist movements. So all of this stuff is tied into each other, man. Also known as the women's rights movement, refers to a series of social movements and political campaigns for radical and liberal reforms on women's issues created by inequality between men and women, which that's where you got it wrong, man. Women and men are not equal. That's not how the Lord made us. But we're in Babylon the Great, so we know that everything is flipped. This is the land of confusion. Such issues are women's liberation, reproductive rights, domestic violence, maternity leave, equal pay, women's suffrage, sexual harassment, and sexual violence. Movements priorities have expanded since its beginnings in the 1800s and vary among nations and communities. So like priorities range from opposition to female genital mutilation in one country to opposition in the glass ceiling in another. Feminism in parts of feminism in parts of the Western world has been an ongoing movement since the turn of the century. During its inception, and I won't read further because this has nothing to do with what I'm talking about today. But let's go ahead and go into this reproductive rights before I read down on eugenics, which a lot of people have not heard of that before. A lot of the people around my age, I probably could ask 10 people and they wouldn't be able to tell me what eugenics is. Reproductive rights are legal rights and freedoms relating to reproduction and reproductive health that vary amongst countries around the world. The WHO defines reproductive rights as follows. Reproductive rights rest on the recognition of the basic right of all couples and individuals to decide freely and responsibly the number, spacing, and timing of their children, and to have the information and means to do so, and the right to attain the highest standard of sexual and reproductive health. They also include the right of all to make decisions concerning reproduction free of discrimination, coercion, and violence. Reproductive rights may include some of the following: right to abortion, birth control, freedom from coerced sterilization and contraception, the right to access good quality reproductive health care, and the right to education and access in order to make free and informed reproductive choices Reproductive rights may also include the right to receive education about STIs and other aspects of sexuality, right to menstrual health, and protection from practices such as female genital mutilation. Yeah, and I won't read further. I really just needed a basic definition for you all so you can know what it means. So, like I said, it includes abortion and birth control. So let's go back to Margaret Sanger. Sanger has been criticized for supporting eugenics, including negative eugenics. So we will come back to that because that is important. Remember that. Some historians believe her support of negative eugenics, a popular stance at that time, which was the late 19th century to the early 20th century, was a rhetorical tool rather than a personal conviction. Salaki, let me get this. Let's see what that word means. Stylistic, extravagant, relating to or concerning with the art of rhetoric, asked in order to produce, relating to or concerned with the art of rhetoric. In 2020, Planned Parenthood disavowed Sanger. So they denied her, citing her past record with eugenics and racism. So that's important as well. With the next article we're gonna read about this woman. In 1916, Sanger opened the first birth control clinic in the U.S., which led to her arrest for distributing information on contraception after an undercover policewoman bought a copy of her pamphlet on family planning. Her subsequent trial and appeal generated controversy. Sanger felt that for women to have a more equal footing in society and to lead healthier lives, they needed to be able to determine when to bear children. And see, that is a common misconception between the women. You don't get to decide when you bear a child. Number one, the man bring forth the child, which is why whenever you read in anywhere in the Bible, it always talks about so and so begot so and so. It's always talking about a man because a man uh, has a lineage, not the woman. It says, and on top of that, man, it instructs us to be fruitful and to multiply. So I'm gonna get that in a second too. She also wanted to prevent so-called back alley abortions, which is just another term for unsafe abortions, which were common at the time because abortions were illegal in the United States. She believed that while abortion may be a viable option in life-threatening situations for the pregnant, it should generally be avoided. She considered contraception the only practical way to avoid them. In 1921, Sanger founded the. So this is basically just talking about the different leagues and different organizations that she founded, which is pretty much unimportant. It just talks about how she started a clinic in Harlem, how she had all African Americans working for her. But let's go ahead and get this real quick. So I'm gonna get this article about her, and then I'm gonna go into a scripture. Dang. So this is from Time Magazine. This is an article. What Margaret Sanger really said about eugenics and race. It says it was 100 years ago, October 16, 1916, that Margaret Sanger opened the first birth control clinic in the U.S. And an advocate, Shalaki, an advocate for women's reproductive rights, who was also a vocal eugenics enthusiast. Margaret Sanger leaves a complicated legacy, and one that conservatives have periodically leveraged into sweeping attacks on the organization she helped found, Planned Parenthood. Last year, 25 House Republicans campaigned to have a bust of the pioneer family planner removed from the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery, where it has been included in an exhibit featuring American civil rights leaders called The Struggle for Justice, with Ted Cruz's office issuing a press release explaining that she didn't belong there for a number of reasons, the most damning of which is that a part of her inhumane life's work, she advocated for the extermination of African Americans. It's not the first time Sanger has faced this accusation. During this past primary season, Ben Carson proclaimed that Sanger believed that people like me should be eliminated, later clarifying her PolitiFact that he was talking about the black race. And in 2011, Herman Cain alleged that Sanger's original goal for Planned Parenthood was to help kill black babies before they came into the world. Salaki. Much of the controversy stems from a 1939 letter in which Sanger outlined her plan to reach out to black leaders, specifically ministers, to help dispel communities' suspicions about the family planning clinics she was opening in the South. We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it even occurs to any of their more rebellious members, she wrote. And like it said, man, like Cat Williams said, he said, or no, that might have been Charleston White who said that. One of them two. He said, what do the white leaders do? They get the preachers and the pastors to come and talk to the community because they ain't good with them, man. He said they agents, you know. So she went to the ministers like Esau Edom knows to do, and used them to talk to the people. Oh, since the reverend are saying it, then it must be okay. And there go Jay going along with this shit. That's why I brought out Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and 10 to begin with. It was, as the Washington Post called it, an inartfully written sentence, but one that in context describes the sort of preposterous allegations she feared, not her actual mission. The irony is that it has been used to propagate those very allegations. Cruz's letter to the director of the National Portrait Gallery, for example, quotes only first half of the sentence. Sanger's stated mission was to empower women to make their own reproductive choices. White women, Edomite women. She did focus her efforts on minority communities because that was where, due to poverty and limited access to health care, women were especially vulnerable to the effects of unplanned pregnancy. As she framed it, birth control was the fundamental women's rights issue. Enforced motherhood, she wrote in 1914, is the most complete denial of women's rights to life and liberty. Now, this is going to lead me into my point where I bring up my precepts. Because these women have a false understanding that they that they're entitled to just pick and choose whenever they want to do these things, you know. You're degrading women's rights and all of this other stuff. Okay, let's see what the scripture says. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 3. But I will have you know that the head of every man is a Mashiach, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Hamashiach is the Most High Power. So, let's see what that word head means. The head of the woman of persons, master, lord. What does the word lord mean? Master of a husband in relation to his wife. So that means that the wife's master or lord will be the husband. Therefore, that's why it says in the scriptures that a woman is in subjection to a man, meaning she must submit to a man and her husband. So with all this, women should have a choice and all of this stuff, you do realize that you are your husband's property. When y'all become one, you become his property. That's why sometimes you'll see in the scriptures that the woman will call her husband her lord. Yeah, that's her master. So, and then on top of that, like I said, man, you have all of these women. Actually, let me just go back to my article. We can read about eugenics though, but my point in bringing that out was to show you that the head of the woman is the man, meaning the master. Your husband is your master. So all of this, she don't have a choice and all this stuff is degrading to women's rights. Salakia, a man is your master. All right, so let's go ahead and go back now and look into the history of eugenics. Eugenics, from ancient Greek, good, well, and genus, genes, born, come into being, growing, grown, is a set of beliefs and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of a human population. Historically, eugenicists have altered various human gene frequencies by inhibiting the fertility of people and groups they consider inferior, or promoting that of those considered superior. Now, let's just stop right there. Now let's break it down. So remember, like I told you, I said remember in the Marcus Sanger wiki page that we just looked at, where it said right here, it says Sanger has been criticized for supporting eugenics, including negative eugenics. So meaning two sides, two parts. So in that first sentence, when it said it's the practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of human population, that will be considered good eugenics. The side that they use for themselves, Esau, Edom, because Edomites were the ones that first started this. Salaki, I'm trying to find. Liberal eugenics, also called New eugenics, aim to make genetic interventions morally acceptable by rejecting coercive state programs and relying on parental choice. Bioethicist Nicholas Anger, who coined the term, argues for example that the state should only intervene to forbid interventions that excessively limit a child's ability to shape their own future. So let me go back, Salaki. This is what I was looking for. The term eugenics and its modern field of study were first formulated by Francis Galton, which is an Edomite. So that was my point. So let's go back. Historically, so that's what they made that for themselves with the good eugenics. Historically, eugenicists have altered various human gene frequencies by inhibiting the fertility of people and groups they considered inferior. What does the word inhibiting mean? Impede, hinder, restrain, or prevent. By preventing the fertility. What does fertility mean? You got to go into it, man. The ability to conceive, productiveness, of people and groups they considered inferior. What is inferior? Second rate, below, lower in status, second rate. So if you ever looked into American history or just not been living under a rock your whole life, you would know that Esau Edom, the so-called white man, has always considered the minorities, the Negro, natives, and Latinos, to be inferior to them, even though we are superior in the spirit. We know that because they are the basis of men. But in this cases, dating back to slavery, to Jim Crow, which is where this time period first began, which is where the eugenics first began to take place, which is in the late 19th century, early 20th century. Think about what was going on around that time. Just getting out of slavery. Still in slavery, pretty much. Sharecropping, Jim Crow, all of that stuff. So that group of people, let's read it again. Historically, eugenicists have altered various human gene frequencies, which you're also not supposed to alter yourself. Reads that in the scriptures. I'm going to get that in a second. Altered various human gene frequencies by preventing the ability to conceive of people and groups they considered below them, or promoting that of those considered superior, which is themselves. So that's why I said, remember the eugenics and negative eugenics, because the negative eugenics was used on people they considered inferior to them. Now, before I get into it, let me pull up a scripture regarding, actually, let me continue reading and I can bring it back. The contemporary history of eugenics began in the late 19th century, like I mentioned, when a popular eugenics movement emerged in the United Kingdom and then spread to many countries, including the United States, Canada, Australia, and most European countries, Sweden and Germany. In this period, people from across the political spectrum espoused eugenic ideas. Consequently, many countries adopted eugenic policies intended to improve the quality of their population's genetic stock. Historically, the idea of eugenics has been used to argue for a broad array of practices ranging from prenatal care for mothers deemed genetically desirable to the forced sterilization and murder of those deemed unfit. So prenatal care is just talking about how you go through the process of having a baby and you have those checkups and you get information and learn things from your doctor. That's what that is. But let's reread that though. Historically, the idea of eugenics has been used to argue for a broad array of practices ranging from prenatal care for mothers deemed genetically desirable. So, talking about Esau Edom, the Edomite women, so-called white women, to the forced sterilization and murder of those deemed unfit. So, what does sterilization mean? Surgery to make a person or animal unable to produce offspring. And who was deemed unfit is going to go into it. To population genesis, the term has involved, included the avoidance of inbreeding without altering allele frequencies. For example, British Indian scientist J.B.S. Haldane wrote in 1940 that the motor bus, by breaking up inbred village communities, was a powerful eugenic agent. Debate as to what exactly counts as eugenics continues today. Early eugenicists were mostly concerned with factors of measured intelligence that often correlated strongly with social class. Although it originated as a progressive social movement in the 19th century, in contemporary usage in the 21st century, which just means modern, the term is closely associated with scientific racism. New liberal eugenics seeks to disassociate itself from old, authoritarian eugenics by rejecting coercive state programs and relying on parental choice. Now, we just read a lot. So let me go back. When it says, and I'm gonna end up reading this again with whatever article I pull up. With whatever page I pull up. But when it says deemed unfit, they meant minority groups, people who suffer from disabilities, etc. But let's go ahead and get this though, real quick. Because it said they use. Let me first go to Slovakia. Let me first go to eugenics. To eugenics in United States. See, look, man, sterilization of Latino women, sterilization of Native American women. And it also talks about the sterilization of black women. But we're going to go ahead and scroll up real quick. See, look, unfit versus fit individuals. Yeah, no. Eugenics, the set of beliefs and practices. This is eugenics in the United States. Eugenics, the set of beliefs and practices which aims to improving the genetic quality of the human population, played a significant role in the history and culture of the United States from the late 19th century into the mid-20th century. The cause became increasingly promoted by intellectuals of the progressive era. While this American practice was ostensibly about improving genetic quality for the white people, it has been argued that eugenics was more about preserving the position of the dominant groups in the population. Like I said, scholarly research has determined that people who found themselves targets of the eugenics movement were those who were seen as unfit or who were seen as unfit or for society, the poor, the disabled, the mentally ill, and specific communities of color, and a disproportionate number of those who fell victim to eugenicist sterilization initiatives were women who were identified as African American, Asian American, or Native American, as well as Latino American. As a result, the United States eugenics movement is now generally associated with racist and nativist elements, as the movement was to some extent a reaction to demographic and population changes, as well as concerns over the economy and social well-being rather than scientific genetics. So like we read in that article about Margaret Sanger, like Ben Carson said, she targeted to kill people that looked like me. And she was in full support of negative eugenics as well as regular eugenics. But see, people don't know this. They don't know this is where birth control and abortion and all of that stuff reproductive rights, they don't know that that stems from this. They don't know that. And let me get one more thing and I'm going to pull up some scripture. Salakia. Because it's a lot of information to digest. African Americans and birth control. Yep. Okay, that's the right one. African Americans or Black Americans' access and use of birth control are central to many social, political, cultural, and economic issues in the United States. Birth control policies in the place during American slavery and the Jim Crow era highly influenced Black attitudes towards toward reproductive management methods. Other factors include African American attitudes towards family, sex, and reproduction, religious views, social support structures, Black culture, and movements towards bodily autonomy. Damn. Oh shit. Salaki. Bodily integrity is the in inviolability. Salaki. Let me see what that word means. Never to be broken, infringed, or dishonored. Of the physical body and emphasis the importance of personal autonomy. Self-ownership and self-determination of human beings over their own bodies. In the field of human rights, violation of the bodily integrity of another is regarded as unethical infringement, intrusive, and possibly criminal. And inform uncoerced decision. Okay, I'm not going to go into this. All right. Prominent historical figures in Black communities have debated whether Black Americans would benefit from the use of birth control or if birth control is inherently racist and designed to reduce the Black American population. Before abolition of American slavery, enslaved Black men and women were victims of legalized sexual and reproductive violence. Some sources estimate 58% of enslaved women and girls between the age of 15 to 30 experienced sexual assault, often perpetrated by slave masters and other white men. White people saw Black women as objects used to meet the sexual needs of white men. They also experienced abuse at the hands of the wives of the white men. White men often raped and impregnated Black women to increase their enslaved population. In addition, enslaved American women were subject to frequent sexual exploitation through arranged marriages in order to produce children and sexually violent encounters initiated by other enslaved people. The Jezebel stereotype shifted blame onto Black women for their experiences with the sexual violence and characterized them as hypersexual. This is a stereotype that has continued within modern times. Black men were publicly lynched and castrated by white people, in order to assert dominance and reduce their reproductive control. Why would you trust someone that did that to you in the past? They forcibly sterilized our women and forcibly castrated our men to reduce our reproductive control, to assert dominance, and to depopulate us. After Emancipation Proclamation granted legalized freedom to enslaved Black people, Jim Crow laws and Black codes perpetrated continuing sexual and reproductive abuse of Black people, particularly women. Laws against rape only protected white women, and consequently failed to protect Black survivors of gang rape genital mutilation, and lynching. So let me pull up a scripture on that, man. It's like you when I was doing the research on this, it made me upset because these people don't realize where all of this stems from, yet they support it. They support it blindly. This is the blind leading the blind, man. It says Deuteronomy 23:1, he that is wounded in the stones, or hath his privy member cut off, shall not enter into the congregation of Yahweh. Salaki. I don't know why my book's not split. So it says in the NLT, if a man's testicles are crushed or his penis is cut off, he may not be admitted to the assembly of Yahweh. Genital modifications are forms of body modifications applied to the human sexual organs. When there's cutting involved, genital cutting or surgery can be used. The term genital enhancement seems to be generally used for genital modifications that modify the external aspects the way the patient wants it. The term genital mutilation is used for genital modifications that drastically diminish the recipient's quality of life and result in adverse health outcomes, whether physical or mental. So like I just read in Deuteronomy 23 and verse 1, anyone who does that is not welcome into this assembly of the Lord. So that was my point of bringing that out. You're not supposed to do body modification to yourself. And also, I believe in one of these, it was something about castration, which is also connected to genital mutilation, which is something that they regularly did to us. Was it in this? I don't believe so. What the heck? No. Salakia. Let me see. It might be right here. No? Okay. Well, anyways, I might just look up, if I can't find it, I might just look up the definition of castration. Man, I could have sworn it was, let me go back and see. Yeah, man, I'm going to just look it up. It's okay. So honestly, I can't remember where I seen that at. Talking about castration. Yeah, I'm going to just look it up. Castration. Castration is the removal or destruction of the testicles or ovaries, which can be done surgically, chemically, or with radiation. So like we said, like I just read in Deuteronomy 23:1, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that. Now, going back, since I read that because I wanted to read that part about it saying that they were gonna that they generally mutilated us, and then I was gonna come back to this part and go into a precept, Salaki, where it says, yes, historically, eugenicists have altered various human gene frequencies, which also goes back into what I just read in Deuteronomy 23:1. By inhibiting, we already read that, preventing the ability to conceive of people and groups they considered inferior, which we've determined was African Americans, Negroes, Natives, and Latinos, or Latinas, Salaki. So, and we read down here, historically, the idea of eugenics has been used to argue for a broad array of practices ranging from prenatal care for mothers deemed genetically desirable to the forced sterilization and murder of those deemed unfitted, which we've already identified those people to be unfit were people of color, the Negroes, Natives, and Latino women. So, as well as some men. So, let's go ahead and get Genesis 1 and verse 28. And I'll start at verse 27. The point being at 28. So the Most High Power created man in his own image. In the image of the Most High Power created he him. Male and female created he them. So the Lord created the man in his own image, and then he created the woman for the man, which we know. And the Most High Power blessed them. And the Most High Power said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So it says in the NLT, then God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it, reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground. So the Lord instructed the woman and the man to be fruitful and multiply, to conceive and replenish, and spread his seed amongst the earth. He instructed that. Hold up. Spread. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to west and east, to north and south, and in thee and thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And he was talking to who? He was talking to Jacob. It says, and behold, Yahweh stood above it and said, I am the Lord of God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land wherein thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. So, and you see it says Jacob. So let me go ahead and go back. So Genesis 1 and 28, this precept I'm about to bring up is going to connect that. This is Psalm 127 and verse 3 on down. Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, Yahweh, and the fruit of the womb is a reward. And arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. So what does that word fruit mean? Fruit, offspring, children. See? That's why I read, be fruitful and multiply. So have offspring, children. Continue. So it says in the NLT, children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from him. Children born to a young man are like arrows in a warrior's hands. How joyful is the man whose quiver is full of them. He will not be put to shame when he confronts his accusers at the city gates. So children are a blessing, man, from the Lord. Children are a blessing. So the fact that you But want to take that blessing away is sick. That's sick, man. It's real sick. But at the same time, like I said, those people started this to try, or they did actually, sterilize our women, castrate the men and the women, forced sterilizations. We read it all. We read the purpose of eugenics. Do I need to read it again? These groups of people found themselves targets of sterilization. They tested this stuff on our people. So lock it. Let me. Yeah, man. It said historically, eugenicists have altered various human gene frequencies by preventing the ability to conceive of groups of people they consider inferior below them. So, I don't know. I don't know how plain I can make that. Historically, the idea of eugenics has been used to argue for a broad array of practices ranging from prenatal care for mothers deemed genetically desirable to the forced sterilization and murder of those deemed unfit, so they didn't have a choice. And now y'all get a choice, and y'all would rather take it than to look into the history and realize, hey man, they brought this stuff forth to kill off our people and to control our population. But we don't look into those things, do we? We just go with whatever. It's just the blind leading the blind, huh? It's the blind leading the blind. In a word of war, I search for peace of mind. It's the blind leading the blind. So let me get this article by Texas. I believe this is Texas Western. Oh, Texas Women's University, Salaki. The autonomy revoked the forced sterilization of colored women. The forced sterilization of women of color in the 20th century America. The United States has had a very long history of racism and xenophobia. This history becomes more complex as time progresses. One consistent factor of this racism in the United States is the efforts of whites to control the reproductive rights of people of color. From the kidnapping of Native American children for white families to acts of abuse against black slaves by white slave owners, people of color have repeatedly had their reproductive rights violated. Much of this violence derives from beliefs of white supremacy, which perpetuates the notion that the lives of people of color are less important than the lives of the Anglo-Saxon population, which the elder brother Malcolm already explained that the Anglo-Saxon people were Israelites. This racism and xenophobia fueled the eugenics, so really they should have just said white people. This racism and xenophobia fueled the eugenics movement in the 19th and 20th centuries. Eugenics is the belief that certain practices could improve the biology and genetics of the human race, with white, able-bodied people being considered the most fit representation of good genetics. The eugenics movement and racist beliefs led to the involuntary sterilization of women of color in the United States in the 20th century. Much of this sterilization continued in many states until as late as the 1970s, showing how pervasive these racist notions were in the United States. So let me go ahead and bring a scripture, man, because I've been reading a lot. Actually, I'll bring it up after I read this, Salaki, because I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read a couple more paragraphs down, a few more. Eugenics emerged in the late 19th and early 20th century. Sir Francis Galton coined the term in 1883, and this belief became very appealing to upper-class whites in the United States. At the turn of the century, the U.S. faced an influx of immigration from Southern Europe and migration of African Americans from Southern to Northern American cities, which caused societal shifts and anxiety for the white American population. This rapid shift in populations worried powerful upper class whites, which led many of them to adopt eugenics as a way to preserve the American way of life. Eugenics was then embraced by scientists, social activists, and politicians as a progressive social movement aimed at ridding society of undesirable characteristics. Some powerful individuals who chose to adopt eugenics were Theodore Roosevelt, Andrew Carnegie, and most notably, Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger was a nurse, one of the leaders of the birth control movement, publishers of the magazine The Woman Rebel, and founder of Planned Parenthood. Sanger was very outspoken about reproductive rights and education in a time when distributing the information was outlawed. Sanger was dedicated to her cause and sought to find a way to expand it, but she was rejected by other women's rights leaders for being too radical. As a result, Sanger decided to broaden her alliances and work with Malthusian and eugenic groups as a way to make the use of contraceptives respectable and widespread. Neo-Malthusians were an English group that focused on the idea that the poverty resulted in an excess population and advocated for sexual education and contraceptive use. Sanger gravitated to this group and began to attend conferences to discuss social issues and ways to overcome them. Several politicians, eugenicists, and scientists attended these conferences. Margaret Sanger herself even organized some of these meetings. Although Sanger had been fighting for reproductive rights since 1914, she realized that if her birth control movement were to succeed, it would need to succeed internationally. To Sanger, if the movement were to become international, there would be a specific justification for contraceptive use. Above all, Sanger maintained that contraception was a way to empower women and for them to exert their autonomy. Shalakia. Because that's the second time we've seen that word. And the first time, damn, can I? Okay, there we go. I really just wanted the definition. The right or condition of self-government. Thank you. Through Sanger's multiple years of association and alliance with the eugenics groups and the neo-Malthusians, she also aligned her movement with the racial and hierarchical beliefs associated with these groups. Margaret Sanger was not the only reproductive rights leader to associate with eugenics beliefs. However, she was the most notorious and prolific of these leaders due to her association with Planned Parenthood. Eugenics was embraced by many during the early 20th century as a progressive movement, and several pro-eugenic laws emerged that validated forced sterilization. The first U.S. state to enact legislation to allow eugenic surgery was Indiana in 1907, emphasized by Dr. Harry Clay Sharp, who performed such surgeries on inmates in an Indiana prison as early as 1899. Indiana's willingness to test these experimental surgeries inspired other states to follow suit. The ability to sterilize others was granted by the Supreme Court in 1927. With the Buck v. Bell case, Buck v. Bell confirmed that the constitutionality of Virginia's statute of forced sterilization. The Supreme Court held that the state-sanctioned sterilization of the feeble-minded was denied equal protection of the law guaranteed by the 14th Amendment, and that 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. This court case set a precedent for the legality of eugenic sterilization efforts in the United States. Eugenic sterilization would affect thousands of women of color throughout the 20th century as a result of racism and xenophobia. Throughout history, African Americans have consistently had their reproductive rights abused. Women were especially mistreated and discriminated against by medical professionals. James Marion Sims, the father of modern gynecology, practiced many of his experimental surgeries on enslaved women without anesthetics during the 19th century. African American women were one of the most targeted populations for forced sterilization in the 20th century, especially in the state of North Carolina. North Carolina was among one of the first states to include reproductive technology. into its public health and welfare programs and had one of the most active state sterilization programs. North Carolina was also one of the first states to enact a voluntary sterilization law in 1960. These laws provided the state with the ability to sterilize those who were perceived as feeble-minded, with African American welfare recipients being one of the groups coerced into sterilization on this basis. The percentage of African American state sterilized patients in North Carolina increased tremendously throughout the 20th century, from 23% in the 30s and 40s to 59% between 1958 and 1960. And then 64% between 1964 and 1966. So as you can see, man, let's read this last chapter, or read this last paragraph. So like, several African American women spoke out and fought against coerced sterilization. One woman who discussed her experience with involuntary sterilization was a renowned civil rights leader, Fannie Lou Hamer. Hamer used her leadership to discuss the sterilization of other African American women. Hamer was born into a poor family of sharecroppers and only achieved a sixth grade education. She was involuntarily sterilized in 1961 after she went to the hospital to have a cyst removed, and an event that would affect her for the rest of her life. At a public hearing in Washington, D.C., Hamer protested a 1964 Mississippi sterilization bill and argued that it would target African American women. She mentioned an experience she had when visiting the North Sunflower County Hospital in Mississippi. She said that 6 out of 10 of the women sterilized by tubal ligation were African American, and that the fines and punishments enacted under the sterilization bill are already enforced on single and married African American women. Hamer understood that sterilization was an issue that disproportionately affected African American women and used her influence in the civil rights movement to bring awareness to it. So you don't hear these types of things come out in the history books when you're in school, man. They don't want you to see the dark side of these Edomites, man. They truly wicked. Deep down, they're truly wicked, man. So let me go ahead and bring up a precept, man. This is Psalm 139 and verse 13. You made all the delicate, in the NLT, you made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. So as you can see, man, the Lord was already putting you together when you was in your mother's womb. So that's all for all those people who say, well, the baby's not alive yet. As soon as the sperm touches the egg, as soon as it goes into the woman, it's already being made, man. Like it's like it read, man. You knit me together in my mother's womb. You put me together in utter seclusion, in the dark. When you thought it wasn't happening, it was happening, man, because of the Lord. And let me go into Exodus. First, let me go back to this real quick to make sure. Birth control, also known as contraception, any conception and fertility control, is the use of methods or devices to prevent unintended pregnancy. Birth control has been used since ancient times, but effective and safe methods of birth control only became available in the 20th century. Planning, making available, and using human birth control is called family planning. Some cultures limit or discourage access to birth control because they consider it to be morally, religiously, or politically undesirable. So I just wanted to read that real quick. We already pretty much connected all of that stuff together. This is Exodus chapter 23 and verse 26. There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren in thy land. The number of thy days I will fulfill. So it reads. Let's look into the words, man. There shall nothing cast their young. What does that mean? To be bereaved, make childless, miscarry. Let's read down. To make childless, to cause barrenness, show barrenness, or abortion. So you're not supposed to cast your young, meaning you're not supposed to abort. You're not supposed to abort your young. Nor be barren. What does barren mean? Barren, sterile. Remember, forced sterilization. Infertile, unproductive. Not able to produce children or young. Salaki. Why the hell I can't go back out? Salaki, I'm just gonna close this and open it back up. It's acting stupid. 23 and 26. They shall not cast their young, meaning abort them, abortion, nor be barren, sterile in thy land. So you're not supposed to abort your children or be sterile. The number of thy days I will fulfill. So there will be no miscarriages or infertility in your land, and I will give you long, full lives. So do not abort your child or become sterile, and I will number your days, man. And you gotta realize, man, they've been trying to kill us off since the ancient of days. You can even read it, man. This is in the time of Moses. This is Exodus chapter 1 and verse 16. And he said, and also we've mentioned this as well, that America also is the modern day Egypt, meaning as in the Egypt of the Bible. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife, which is a young woman who assists in childbirth, to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. So that's an order that Pharaoh gave to all the midwives. See, look, it says it. And the king, Salaki, I should have read this before. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shipra, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. So it said, when the Hebrew woman is about to give birth, and if it's a if she's giving birth to a son, kill the son. But if it's a daughter, let the daughter live. And I wonder why he wanted all the women to live. Just think. But the midwives feared the Most High power and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men, children alive. So it's not a coincidence, man, that all of this happened. But that's okay, man. Esau Edom is gonna get repaid. And these are the last few scriptures I have to pull up. I know it's been a pretty long lesson, but through the Spirit, man. It says Obadiah 1 and 10, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. And see, I didn't even go into the Native Americans and the Latino women, which really I could speak on that real quick. Let me see. Sterilization of African American women. Remember we read that about North Carolina. Sterilization of Latino women. The 20th century demarcation separate. The 20th century separated the time in which compulsory sterilization heavily navigated its way into primary Latino communities against Latino women. Locations such as Puerto Rico and Los Angeles, California, were found to have had large amounts of their female population, coerced into sterilization procedures without quality and necessary informed consent nor full awareness of the procedure. And I'm not going to continue. I'm not going to go deeper into that. I'm just going. It says in California, by the year 1964, a total of 20,000 people were sterilized, making that the largest amount in all of the United States. Individuals sterilized were disproportionately Mexican, Mexican American, and Chicano women. But yeah, we're supposed to forget, right? We're supposed to forget these things. An estimated 40% of Native American women, 60 to 70,000 women, and 10,000 of Native American men in the United States underwent sterilization in the 70s. A General Accounting Office report in 1976 found that 3,400 Native American women, 3,000 of which were of childbearing age, were sterilized by the Indian Health Service in Arizona, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and South Dakota from 1973 to 1976. The GAO report did not conclude any instances of coerced sterilization, but called for the reform of IHS and contract doctors' processes of obtaining informed consent for sterilization procedures. The IHS informed consent processes examined by the GAO did not comply with the 1974 ruling of the U.S. District Court that any individual contemplating sterilization should be advised orally at the outset that at no time could federal benefits be withdrawn because of failure to agree with sterilization. I'm not going to continue reading further. Now, that's the reason why this type of stuff vexes us, man. Because you see the type of shit they used to do to our people, and they tell us to forget. But fuck that, man. Fuck forgetting. Man. This is Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 11. And the point being in verse 15, in the day that thou stoodest on the other side in the day that the strangers carried away captives and his forces and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou wast as one of them. So it says, when they were invaded, you stood aloof, refusing to help them. Foreign invaders carried off their wealth and cast lots to divide up Jerusalem, but you acted like one of Jerusalem. You acted like one of Israel's enemies. But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger. Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Israel, children of Judah, in the day of their destruction. Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. Neither shouldest thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. For the day of Yahweh is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy reward shall return upon thy own head. So it's okay, man. They did all these things to us, but it's going to return upon them. It's going to come back to bite them in the ass. They think they got away with it, but it's okay, man. All you have to do is be patient and wait. The Lord's going to have the last laugh. This is Romans 12:19. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith Yahweh. So let the Lord revenge. Let the Lord get the revenge, man. Let him pay him back. Therefore, if thy enemy hungry, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shall heap coals of fire on his back. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. So pretty much, man, kill him with kindness. And that's all you gotta do, man. And the Lord's gonna deal with them. And this is my last verse I have to pull up, man. This is Ezekiel chapter 25 and verse 12. Thus saith Yahweh the Most High Power, because that Edom hath dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and hath greatly offended and revenged himself upon them. Therefore thus saith Yahweh the Most High Power, I will also stretch out my hand upon Edom, and will cut off man and beast from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith Yahweh the Most High Power. So he's gonna bring back the revenge. He's gonna use some of us to do it. He's gonna use us to do it, man. That's why Elder Apostle Tar, man, when we get them powers, man, we gonna get on your ass, man. So, Lord willing, the lesson was edifying. Call Halal Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai. I want to give double honors to the apostle and elders of Great Millstone who taught me the truth through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shai. And until next time, I say Shalom, Israel, Shalom.